Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 84 with Diego Fanara. So this is one of my episodes. We'll be coming out with one weekly in the month of May. I've had some great people reach out to talk through some things that are relevant to the current pandemic going on and how institutions and organizations are responding. So this one is focused mostly on admissions and enrollment, and how both the NAC, AC, NACAC, I think is the kind of colloquial name for it, how those recent relaxing of provisions, in addition to the current pandemic, are both kind of coalescing and combining to be having some real tangible impacts on, yield and forecasts for institutions. And Diego is the CEO and co-founder of Unibuddy, so they're kind of plugging into this whole world and helping students have peer-to-peer interactions to make more informed decisions about where they choose to go to college. So really great digital engagement platform and kind of evolution of the work that admission teams are doing all over the country and all over the world. So Diego is bringing a little bit of an international perspective to this as well, which is appreciated. So appreciate your continued support and listening to this episode, which is the bonus episode number 84 with Diego Fanara. Cool. We'll go ahead and dive in here. Thank you so much for jumping on to hang out for the podcast here, Diego, and excited to explore a little bit of a different kind of area for me, really, of just, things in kind of recruitment and admissions and how this kind of really unique time is being shaped. There's certain things that I think that people might have gotten that are fairly recent developments in terms of different regulations and things, in addition to the really unique time that we're in with the pandemic. But before we get to any of that fun stuff, if you want to give everybody a brief introduction of who you are on your professional journey and kind of, how you got to be where you are today through the lens, I guess, of your own kind of college admissions journey.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin, for having me. For my personal background, as a prospective student, so that was back in 2011, I grew up in Switzerland, and I was coming from a family as a first child going to university. So from my lens, I really felt a lack of resources to make the right decision, feeling empowered, if you want, about the tools I needed and the information online, because I couldn't visit every campuses I wanted to apply to. So I was looking for innovative way of comparing different universities and different courses, and I ended up also reaching out to students at these universities. And that's one conversation that I had with one university really changed my perception of that course, and that frustration of lack of reassurance and resources, and at the same time experiencing firsthand peer-to-peer, really led me to start Unibuddy, and that's really where the origin came from.
Well, yeah. So I guess this is a venture of yours that's kind of remedying that problem that you yourself faced. So if you want to get a little bit deeper and give a little bit more context to that core problem that Unibuddy is seeking to solve, and then we'll kind of get into all these kind of current event topics. But yeah, just give folks a little bit more of an understanding of Unibuddy and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so coming back as a student myself, when I was feeling alone, when having to make that first crucial decision of which university and what degree to choose, and about making the right choice based on this online information, that's the real problem that we're going to solve, helping students make the right choice. And the way we do it is through shared human experience, making sure that you have a peers, you have a buddy, as we call it, that will be here to give you this real authentic information about this course, about this institution. So we launched this platform when I graduated in 2015. And the basis was just putting in touch prospective students with current student ambassadors that were on campus to chat answer all of the questions and the worries that prospects might have. And then in 2017, we realized the value that we're creating for admission by increasing their likelihood of students joining the institutions once they receive those unique information of real student experiences. So in 2017, we started working with institutions directly, providing the platform to them as a tool to create more relationships with their prospects. And today, we're working with 300 universities around the globe with over 12,000 ambassadors registered on the platform, ready to answer questions. And so far, in about 3 years, we've had over 2.5 million conversations between prospects and current students.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, yeah, there's just so much value, I think, in that kind of peer-to-peer, but also sort of the that near-peer kind of mentoring and support that happens where, somebody who's just been through something, being able to speak to that and how they, navigated everything. It's really great that you are helping to facilitate that. And so, Unibuddy is plugging into, a global, large kind of network of this world of admissions and enrollment and getting students to the best fit university and program and all those sort of things. So I guess, from your point of view and your experience now jumping into that world, how do you see the current state of college student admissions, in the US and globally? I don't know if there's similarities or stark differences, but just what comes to mind in terms of that kind of current state, which obviously has been disrupted quite a bit with the pandemic, but even at large of just like since, Unibuddy started, whatever comes to mind, I guess, of that kind of current state.
Yeah, great question, Dustin. I mean, the crisis, this COVID crisis, is just accelerating things that were already happening in the past. So enrollment was already very competitive, and now it's becoming even more aggressive from an admission standpoint. There's still a lot of unknown. For example, the entry and fall, is this going to happen on campus, online, and hybrid, and the difference between different type of institutions. International students as well, there's a lot of unknowns about travel ban, visa, and it feels like policies are changing all the time, and even more countries between different countries. So I would say that right now the numbers that started to dip down is going to be accelerated. There's going to be even more impact on the international numbers, and that's the same happening with other markets that we're working in, like in the UK and Australia, that are overly reliant on international students. So Australia just announced plans to support international students by exempting them from the travel restrictions. And in the UK, there was some announcement about putting a cap on the number of students recruited by institutions. They're making more of like a fair game, so there are less aggressivity in their enrollment tactics. But overall, we're seeing real support and collaboration within different countries. So we're working with UCAS. This is the government organization for collecting application of prospects. And they're really supporting every UK institutions with partnerships that we have with them to allow every institutions to have their student ambassadors on their website to increase their visibility and keep reassuring those international students about the state of the entry in September.
Yeah. Because I feel that like what sort of resonates, I mean, just this current moment is affecting everyone all at once in sort of the same way. And I think the opportunities for, and it keeps coming up for me and things that I read in these podcast interviews of like kind of the networked approach for higher education where, there can be a lot of opportunity and potential in, organizations and institutions working together and sort of, helping make sure that students are connected with opportunities that are going to be positively impactful for them, or just that they just get the support that they need. So there's I feel like there's something there that, like, even in, as students are choosing which institution to go to, there can be maybe opportunities now for them to all collaborate. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly just the dark cloud of uncertainty right now, in terms of, what is the fall going to look like, seems to be the big question as of the recording of this episode. And just trying to have contingency plans. I'm sure, a lot of institutions kind of developing those, but, and whether it's just the forecast for the incoming students, but certainly all the returning students as well, like what's going to be their experience. But so I guess, this is also happening kind of in the aftermath of I know, somewhat of a blockbuster kind of headline grabbing event of changing in recruiting rules that the kind of the alphabet soup of like these different higher ed organizations, but NACAC, which I know just anecdotally is a major admissions professional organization, which gives these kind of guidelines and sort of professional standards for the functional area of admissions. So I guess just for anybody who might not be aware, if you want to briefly explain what the changes were and what the impacts that you're seeing on enrollment and admissions in the United States.
Sure. So, I mean, that was related to my comment that I mentioned before about this recruitment that's created very aggressive tactics. And this is on the back of the impact of NACAC. So just for a bit of story, that was in the fall of 2019. And ACAC removed provisions from their ethics code. So those changes allow colleges to be more aggressively recruiting students and pursue students at other institutions. The issue that I see in this is that this is actually having the opposite effect and turning off students. Students are looking for authenticity. They're not looking for salespeople selling them the brochures. And we've done a report with INTEAD last year where we're asking hundreds of thousands of students what was the most influential part in their decision making, and these were students mostly that used Unibuddy. So that was a report alongside our users of prospective students, and I mean, the majority of them, over 60%, mentioned that the chat with current students were the most influential part of their decision making. And this was the purpose of Unibuddy. It's not about recruiting any students. It's about recruiting the best students and sharing the right information to make sure that students know what to expect before coming and joining the institution. And even to our data, when we see that the students are able to chat with someone they can relate to, so it could be someone from the same country or someone from the same programs that they're interested in, the chat is much longer. I mean, it's over 50% more more engagement and a longer conversation when the students can relate to each other. So I don't think that these new rules with more aggressivity, and maybe aggressivity is a strong word, but those tactics, that removes that collaboration and this authenticity is the right one today to attract students.
I feel like that's kind of how it was like captured in different publications, is like, institutions can now be more aggressive in their admissions work and outreach and everything. So yeah, I mean, and the idea that like now it could be just accelerating that trend that was already happening when that kind of restriction was relaxed, and just being even that much more competitive now, and institutions kind of taking advantage of being possible for them to be a little bit more aggressive. But well, I guess just in terms of like things internationally, I don't know if there's any, again, sort of differences that you're seeing and maybe like the conversations that these students are having with each other, or, you kind of spoke to like the length of them, or maybe, if you're seeing maybe that they're, or any feedback that you're getting that like students are talking about different things now, or, and maybe depending on where they're at, that, different things matter. I'm just curious, I guess, they're just kind of carrying that through a little bit more of like, not necessarily like disruptions, but any just like changes that you're seeing, and just kind of, how these, students are trying to make decisions and trying to gather information that maybe they weren't doing a year ago, when things were more quote unquote normal.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, it's funny. We were as at the end of April, every end of month, we're actually looking into what are the topics most discussed among the prospects in our active student community on Unibody. And what we've been able to see as of the end of April. So first, it was a crazy increase in the number of students signing up on Unibody across all of our platform embedded on university's website. And to give you a number, that was an increase of 90%, 90, more students signing up to ask questions. So really the need of institutions to rely even more on those digital tools and engagement tool. And most of those conversations were also happening on a product, which is the Unibody Live, which allows group discussions. So prospects can also chat to each other, as well as current students, and now staff, admission staff, and someone from academics can also join those groups. And there was 1,000% more messages exchanged on those group chats. And the topics that increased the most in frequency asked by students were about finance. So this is really interesting because that shows that now finance, more than ever, will become one of the driver of prospects on making decisions. They're looking for reassurance and answers about this topic. So this increase in number of messages, number of students signing up, and linked to that topics, it's really showing, the concerns today of prospects. So there's some upside that now the extension of the 1st of May will allow students for making a wiser decision, having more time to make a decision, and getting these answers that they need. For international students in particular, they might look at staying closer to home for finance purpose, and also that reassurance that they need right now for the health. But more than ever, we strongly believe that building dynamic peer-to-peer digital connection right now to create strong relationships of offer holders and students looking at enrolling in September, to really open up through those group chats so everyone can ask each other questions, and raising those concerns like finance is the necessity for college at this time.
Well, I'd have to imagine too, it's that whole kind of, cost and value dilemma of, you could be seeing a high price tag for something, but if, especially, with the possibility of more remote teaching and, online education, having that potentially go on into the fall, I could imagine students being like really scrutinizing and talking to each other about, how well is this being done? Are there the appropriate resources, and, those sort of things, and seeing like, well, why am I going to pay so much, but, to have them poorly execute this digital education, or, just maybe speaking to each other, a currently enrolled student about how it's been going so far with that pivot and transition. So
yeah, definitely. And going to university is not only the teaching side, but it's also the campus experience, making friends, creating connections. So without this, it's just about the value for money, and this is what really students are looking to answer today.
Yeah, like, is this investment going to be worthwhile? Like, if I'm on campus or not, or yeah, maybe it's like a little mix or something. But yeah, there's so many great platforms and tools, that allow for these student activities boards that still try to like put on programming and build community and those sort of things. So, if you're talking with a currently enrolled student and seeing like, wow, they're really doing a great job to make sure that everybody feels included and supported, whether they're on campus or not, then yeah, this is a, wise investment for me to make, or, I'm going to go somewhere else, that just doesn't, seem worth it. But you had mentioned just like you're seeing that like students are really noting that these conversations that they're having through Unibuddy and on your platform are really impactful for helping them to make informed decisions about where they're going to go to college. So, on the kind of brighter side, the silver linings, like what are any kind of tangible, like positive impacts that you're seeing of like what's being talked about, or, just kind of general satisfaction that students are having with their, the choices that they're making of the places that they're going to go and what they're going to study and all that. So, yeah, any cool, good stuff that you can share, it'd be great. It'd be great to hear.
Thank you. So the one thing we keep asking our users and our students is that if we want to achieve our mission of helping students making the right choice to share human experience, we making the right choice, until you join institutions, you will never know if you made the right choice. But for us, before joining is making sure that you're confident about your choice and you're reassured, and now you're more likely to believe that you can make the leap in saying yes to that institutions and paying deposit and going. And out of our users, we're doing every year a big survey of all of our users and asking them how good we were in increasing their confidence to choose an institutions. And our last survey of last year was 88%, more than 88% of all of the Unibuddy users, thanks to Unibuddy and chat to current students, that shaped their decisions with more confidence of enrolling to the institution where they talk to current students. So this is one of the data that we take a lot of pride on. And then secondly, then we try to ask our institution partners to see if the impact on yield had a repercussion, because at the end of the day, that's the value why institutions are taking Unibuddy, is also to increase their yield by building those peer-to-peer relationships. And one example that we've been pretty proud on to work with in the US was with St. John's University out of the Queens in New York. And their experience of yield gains to get the yield up to 26% after using peer-to-peer, which was a big increase in their yield. And this year, as a result, now they're taking it to the next level. And this next level is about building those virtual events with Unibuddy per programs, per students' country of origin. So to really go into that personalization of bringing that reassurance and confidence to students. So and boosting their yield for this year again, even during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, I'd be curious to see. Yeah. I mean, like even during this, isolation time, like if you're doing these, social gatherings or any kind of events and all that kind of stuff, like that has, in addition to obviously if they're having a lot of conversations about kind of the dollars and cents of it all, that is also important. But just that feeling of like, hey, there's friendly people here, like fellow students, like that are really cool. I get along with, like, this feels like a community that I want to be a part of, and those sort of things. Like that is also, so important, and, just making space for that, and still, aspiring to make sure that, you're having students make well-informed decisions that they're really confident about and excited to be joining your university community. It's like, and yeah, you're not having to kind of sell people on it too much. Like, cause I think sometimes that could be flimsy, and why there might be, that drop in yield is like, well, we kind of had this like sizzle and, it grab somebody's attention, but there wasn't the substance to follow it up. But if you're making like personal connections and you feel like really well supported, especially with that peer-to-peer interaction, I feel like, yeah, it's just awesome to see that it really is, producing those positive results for the students, obviously, but also for the institutions. So I guess I'm curious, I asked this really of like all my guests of anything, just out there in the world of like, books, podcasts, documentaries, or anything like that, like stuff that is grabbing your attention, perhaps informing your work, or stuff that you just, are connecting with and engaging with, that's helping you relax and have fun. But anything that you'd want to give kind of a tip of the hat to that we could include in the show notes of things that you are consuming, any kind of content that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will be glad to. So, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I've never worked that much, as you can imagine. With Unibody, we've been quite busy in the past few weeks. But I've also at the same time never had that much time for myself and to reflect on things. And so I've been reading a lot and more meaningful book, I would say. And one of the book that was on my list, and I never really find the time to sit down and consciously read through the page, was The Power of Now. And that's been an amazing book to read, even given the situation, to be more self-aware of myself and also the people around me. So that's been a great book. Podcast as well. I'm a big fan of Michael Orn and Jeff Selingo's Future You. So that I love it. That keeps me really updated on what's going on surrounding student journey that I love, and especially now the impact of COVID on universities. And on the news inside Higher Ed, they're sharing some great concise information, as well as the Pi News.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm a big fan of Future You as well. There's some great fellow higher ed podcasters out there. So yeah, we'll include all that stuff in the show notes there. But is there any other preferred ways that you'd want people to connect with you, Unibody, or like any resources that you have maybe that you'd want to kind of highlight that we would make sure to include in the show notes related to Unibody?
To contact us, it's www.unibody.com. And all the informations are there, as well as some of the stories of some of students and universities. And otherwise, we'll give you some resource to add, I believe, to with the podcast.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, folks can definitely check that out. And yeah, website's got a lot of good stuff as well. And yeah, we'll have all that. And yeah, thank you so much, Diego, for taking some time out of your day to hang out for the podcast here. All really great stuff. So I appreciate you sharing it all. But yeah, we're just looking forward to seeing what more great stuff you and your team there is getting up to. So keep up the great work. And thank you so much for taking some time to hang out for the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dustin. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast.